Welcome to my ePortfolio. My name is Andrew Taylor and I'm a teacher in Vernon, British Columbia. I teach at Harwood Elementary School, currently as the teacher librarian, computer resource teacher, and teaching in the grade 4-5 classroom. I began this journey in the Masters of Educational Technology program 2 years ago. This ePortfolio is my culminating project. Let's go to the pregame. Here in my pregame, I will tell you about my purpose and objectives in this ePortfolio. The purpose of this ePortfolio is to qualify for TQS Category 6 by using this as a capstone project. It's also to serve as a requirement for graduation from the MET program at UBC. The audience that this ePortfolio is intended for is the UBC professors who will evaluate the work, my MET colleagues, and colleagues that I work with who may want to learn from my experiences. Myself is also one of the audiences because I hope this will become a living document that will grow as I grow in my learning about technology. There's three main objectives of this ePortfolio. One is to show the importance of creativity in the learning process. A second is to show how collaboration is a critical element of the learning process and of the MET program. And third is to illustrate constructivist principles in the learning process as I reflect on some of the products that I've created in this program. Now let's go back to the top and back to the home page and talk about the metaphor. One of the requirements of the ePortfolio was to use a metaphor to compare to make it easier to understand for the audience. The metaphor I chose was a football game. I've been involved in football for most of my life as a player, as a coach, and as a fan. And I find that football has a lot of life lessons. Things like teamwork and creativity and constructing new ways to come up with a plan to defeat your opponent. These things fit well into my objectives in this ePortfolio. So I used football as my metaphor. You will see that all of my pages are football terms. We start with the pregame, and then the first quarter, second quarter, the halftime, third quarter, fourth quarter, and finally the highlights. Using the football metaphor, my ePortfolio is structured like a football game. With the pregame, as I said, and then the first quarter. In the first quarter, we see that there are 2 drives. Each drive is similar to a course. And I will talk about the football drive and then about the course and how it is similar to that part of the football game. I will then reflect on my learning, and at the bottom of the page have a link to an artifact that will illustrate the learning that I did and how it connects to the metaphor and to the rest of and to the objectives of the course. So in this way, each of the quarters are divided into drives. Here in the second quarter, we see there's 3 drives. Then we get to halftime with some reflection on taking the break that a halftime illustrates. The third quarter, we have our 6th drive. In the fourth, we have 3 drives that end the game and bring the course to a conclusion. Highlights give us reflection on the eTech 590, which is the course that I'm finishing right now. And it reflects on my experience during that course. The final part is the scoreboard. In football, we look at the scoreboard to see how the game turned out. And in the MET program, the scoreboard is our assessment rubric. And this is where we look at how did we do at the end of the course. Did we meet the criteria that we were trying to meet. After completing this form, you can click on this rubric here. You can click here and download a copy of this, and then you can fill it out and send it back to me using the email address indicated here. Now let's talk about how to navigate around this ePortfolio. Starting from the beginning of the home page, as we scroll down, we see that on the bottom we have a menu similar to at the top, where you can click on any one of these pages to get you to that quarter. So that's one way that you can move around the site without having to go back to the top. At the bottom, we see in every page we'll see two icons: a football helmet that takes you back to the top of the page so that you can review things that you've already looked at, and a football that takes you to the next page in the ePortfolio. Here's our pre-game page. We've talked about the purpose, audience, and objectives already. Then we go to the first quarter, and it talks about what happens in the first quarter and how my journey in the MET program is similar to that. And from there we go to the first drive. Here we see my first selection of an artifact for this course. It was for eTech 500, and it was a research proposal I did on the impact of e-readers on reading comprehension. Selecting this takes us to an embedded document where you can scroll through and read my research proposal. As you see at the bottom, again we have these same icons. Let's go to the second drive of the game, where we look at the second course that I took, eTech 510. And again, at the bottom, we see the artifact I created, which was a lesson, a unit plan actually, on using the smartboard on ecosystems. Selecting it will take us to an embedded video of that smartboard unit. Ecosystems, a smartboard unit for grade 4. We can go back to the top here, and let's look at the third drive of this ePortfolio. In the third course I took was eTech 565A. This was an interesting course with lots of hands-on ideas for using technology. In this course, I learned how to use a learning management system called Moodle. And the artifact that I created was a Moodle course for a grade 5-6 math course. We'll click the link here to go into it. Here's a look at the Moodle course I created on math, with a topic on whole numbers, fractions and decimals, number sense. And at the bottom, we can go to the next drive in our ePortfolio, the fourth drive. This is the page of the fourth drive in the ePortfolio, which was eTech 511, Foundations of Technology. The artifact I took from this course was an essay on a scholarly essay called "Are We a Nation of Readers or a Nation of E-Readers?" By clicking on the link here, we can find the embedded document found on this page. This essay goes into the theoretical aspects of the e-reader more so than the research proposal that I made in eTech 500 on e-readers. Here we look at the difference between traditional books and the new wave of e-reading that is bringing reading back to so many people. So we'll go on now to our fifth drive. And in the fifth drive, I took eTech 512, Applications of Learning Theories to Instruction. And in this course, I was using a concept map for my artifact that linked up all the different learning theories that we learned in the course and found the connections in them. This was a good project that used a lot of creativity, as everybody's concept map looks completely different. And so I was using creativity, which is one of the objectives I had for this artifact. I made a slideshow of my concept map as well, so that you readers could see the different aspects of the concept map more easily. And we're moving on to halftime. Halftime was a time for rest, and for me, halftime for me was Christmas 2011, and I decided that taking 2 courses at a time was getting a little bit much along with work and family commitments. So I wanted to slow things down and take 1 course at a time and do a good job of that. So that was what my plans for the second half of the course. Moving on to the third quarter. Here in the third quarter, we talk about the plans we had for the second half, and the next course I took was E-Tech 532, Technology in the Arts and Humanities. So let's move on to that drive. In the sixth drive, we talk about digital storytelling and games. Digital games-based learning was a very important part. I did my paper on the digital games-based learning and how effective it is. So we'll click on that link to take a look at this paper, and it's embedded here, Are Digital Games Effective Learning Environments in School? I actually did some action research as part of this paper in my own classroom and found that digital games were very motivating, and the students enjoyed learning using them. On to the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, constructivism takes part because as the game gets to be near the end, teams start to construct new ways to try to attack the opposition. And my first course that I took in the fourth quarter was E-Tech 530, Constructing Strategies for E-Learning, the seventh drive. So here we look at different parts of the constructivist philosophy and how constructivism can be used. The artifact I chose for this to illustrate this constructivist strategies was a web quest that I had created called Extraterrestrial Body Systems. And this was made to outline the way that you could incorporate cooperative learning and constructivist in a constructivist strategy. Moving on to the eighth drive. In the eighth and ninth drive, I took 2 summer institutes. And the first one was on teaching games for understanding at UBC. And this was a good course which also involved constructivist strategies. Here I've created a year plan for PE using the Teaching Games for Understanding rationale. The ninth drive. The ninth drive was a course called Recurring Questions of Technology, another summer institute that I took this summer. Here, the professors from different professors each day would come and talk to us about different questions in technology. And the artifact I chose was this Educator's Guide to Online Intellectual Property. And it outlines the changes that are happening to what copyright means in the digital world. As the game ends, we look at highlights. Here we have some highlights from a Monday Night Football game of the recent past. And the highlights of this course, of this program, are found here. And the reflections come from E-Tech 590, the graduating project that I'm involved in right now, and my reflections on that course and how I made this e-portfolio are found in the highlights page. Thank you for listening to my tour guide of my e-portfolio. I hope you've enjoyed it and will go into my e-portfolio and look at it more closely. Thank you.